Ah, hello everyone. Hello, finally got my coffee. How's everybody doing? Hello, Crazy Kid Death. Wild name. Yeah, you get to watch the live stream. You get to collaborate. This is going to be a very collaborative live stream. Um, because we're talking about Silent Hill. This is, strangely enough, this is the channel's bread and butter. Even though I don't do a lot of Silent Hill content, it's always my most beloved videos and some of my favorite ones to make. Hello, Christopher. So I don't know if anybody here has been paying particular attention to the news recently, but we got a new Silent Hill game. Let me know if my audio sounds good. And this Silent Hill game was Silent Hill Ascension. Hey, Bird Derp, stream in 8 hours, not now. I can't. In 8 hours, I'm gonna be sound asleep. Good news, everyone. Lunacid is out. I need to talk to Kira again. I'm so angry at myself for how I screwed up that recording we did together. But yeah, Lunacid is out. I loved the Lunacid alpha. Everybody, check this out. Check that out. Hey, Adak. We do. Is it Godzilla Day today? I didn't know that. It's trauma. It is trauma, Ruby. But yeah, so we got a new Silent Hill game. It's Silent Hill Ascension. This one right here.
State your name.
Let me know if the audio is, again, let me know if the audio is wonky. You guys are responsible for the audio levels. And this might be the most cynical product I've ever seen. It's very cynical. I don't know if it's the most cynical product ever or anything, because it at least has, like, somebody had to model this stuff. Somebody had to design these characters and write these lines and narrate them. There was some effort put into this. I really think this can be laid at the feet of whatever genius it was who decided to just carve this content up into little packs and sell it that way. Seems like maybe that's not the best way to go about making a Silent Hill game. But yeah, it's trauma. It's trauma. It's trauma all over because, oh my god, guys, Silent Hill, it's dead. They ruined the franchise. They ruined the franchise. Let's just do a little bit of a thing here. Now, I know there are some people who have a lot of energy for Silent Hill Shattered Memories, but if we just put this into perspective. The last good Silent Hill game was PT, but if we don't count that, because that was just like, PT is great, but PT is not a complete game yet. If we just look at PT as its own thing, let's remove it from here. Silent Hill really hasn't been art since like 2004. That's 19 years ago, guys. And like even if you have a lot of love for Shattered Memories, like 2009, the kids who were born back then, they're like, they're beginning to drink illegally, but they're beginning to drink now. Like it's been a very, very, very long time since Silent Hill was a series with a lot of artistic merit. So to all that sort of doomerism of, oh my god, they cooked it, they ruined the franchise, I think no, they just released another bad Silent Hill game. Happens all the time. We used to there were some times when we got a bad Silent Hill game every single year. You could, like clockwork, you could just count on it. And I don't think this has, like, the terrible reception to this has ultimately made all that big of a dent into Konami's plan, because they've just offloaded this franchise off to a bunch of third-party developers, with the hopes that, hey, maybe one of them will make a good one, and they make their money either way. So, and Konami doesn't seem to really care about these licenses, so I don't think they're gonna look at this as like, oh my god, they're really damaging the good name of Silent Hill. We can't have that. We need to put some standards into who gets this franchise. Basically, everyone and their grandma is working on their own Silent Hill game. Hey, Mercy. Hey, Silver. I'm skeptical of anything that comes out of AAA studios these days. Yeah, so I've talked about this on previous streams. I should probably, you know what? While I'm just ranting here for a little bit, let's have some footage running in the background so that it's not quite as boring to watch. Um, I've ranted about this many times. This is from World of Longplays, this footage. Spaspo 4, the MVP of this channel, is playing. Um, um, so, what happened in the 6th generation, the 5th and 6th generation, was that you had the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, and they both sold in excess of 100 million copies. And that meant that, and game costs were relatively low back then, especially compared to what you have now. So a team of 15 people, if they could just get their hands on like $1 million loan, which is not that crazy of a proposition, like if you know what you're doing, they could reasonably just make a good game and it would be fine. And because the return on investment, it wasn't, I'm putting $100 million into this trying to get $200 million out. It was more like, I'm putting $1 million in and maybe I'll walk away with $5 million, which was such a reasonable prospect back then. There wasn't that much oversight, it wasn't as crazy oversight over how every single dollar was spent, because it was mostly an industry of nerds. There wasn't that much credentialism. Everybody who knew how to work with computers was basically a super genius anyways, who came out of the great colleges or was like a self-taught programming whiz. Like, I think Mark Cerny is self-taught. I don't know. Anyways, so what happens in the 7th generation, the 6th generation is the best generation because you can look at San Andreas and you can look at Shadow of the Colossus side by side. One of these games is made by a small team, the other one is made by a big team. One of these games cost like, I don't know, $10-20 million to make. The other one was much more modestly budgeted. You can't tell by looking at screenshots which is which. And that's because during the PlayStation 2 era, a big team was not that much of a flex compared to a small team because they were both able to really utilize the machine to its maximum potential. But in the 7th generation, that was just no longer the case. And the difference between a 50-person, $50 million game compared to a 5-person, $500,000 game, it just grew by leagues and bounds. And because there's so much more money involved in it, unless your studio has a very hands-on president, or it still retains, like this is very rare, if it still retains the creative lead from way back when, it still has that sort of founder, these companies, these groups, they often just become sort of swallowed up by this pursuit of, we need to make as much money from this as possible, which is like, we live in a society and all that, so it's fine, but not so great for getting really quality games out. Really good if you want to have your favorite franchises packed with microtransactions and such. Lower video volume. I can lower the video volume. I should have been reading the comments. Sorry. Is it better now? This happens every single time. I do one of these streams and somebody's like, oh, you need to change the video volume. You need to make it louder. You need to make it softer. Okay, it's better now? Good. Hopefully you still made out the rant that I just laid out there. So Team Silent, when they got their hands on the Silent Hill license, when they created the Silent Hill license, what happened was Konami basically gathered up all of their troublemakers, because apparently it's very hard to fire people in Japan. There's some really weird sort of corporate laws or traditions that you don't really just fire people. So they just gathered all of their troublemakers, all of their non-conformists, and they just went, hey guys, you are going to work on something else. You're going to work on a horror game with an American feeling. And Kiichiro Toyama, the director of Silent Hill 1, I think he's really responsible for baking a lot of Stephen King and, really baking Stephen King and Resident Evil vibes into that game. But because they have these people who don't really have a lot of oversight over them, and they're all super talented. I mean, Takayoshi Sato, he lived in the studio for like a year just doing the CG renders, and he was responsible for all of the CG renders in the series, in the first 2 games. He didn't return for the third one, which we're looking at the third game's footage here, which is why it doesn't have the same CG renders. But that's also, like, that's the era of 15 people working together, and you just have one creative lead who's really talented, and you get Silent Hill. And it's an amazing, successful game, and it's also just really artistically endowed. And Koichiro Toyama leaves the Team Silent. He goes on. I think he works with Japan Studios to make Forbidden Siren. Uh, and oh hey whiskey. And he makes Forbidden Siren, and Silent Hill 2 is managed internally by Takayoshi Sato. He's not listed as the producer or the director, but if you read any of the interviews from the era, they all basically talk about Sato as being the creative lead. And even in the Silent Hill announcement stream they had with Masahiro Ito and Akira Yamaoka a year ago, when they were announcing all the new Silent Hill games, they basically reiterated that, yeah, the guy who was responsible for Silent Hill 2 was Takayoshi Sato. He now works as a visual producer for Nintendo. He was the visual, I think he was the visual director, not producer, visual director for Luigi's Mansion 3 and Mario Tennis, among other games. And we're never getting him back. Like, they'll bring back the creature designer and the sound designer to be overseers on the Silent Hill 2 remake, but the guy responsible for it, no. But so the directorial duties kind of shift away from Toyama, who leaves, to Sato. And the amazing thing is that Silent Hill 2 is also a great game. And Sato leaves after the second game, and the duties sort of get split between Hiroyuki Owaku and Masahiro Ito for directing this one, the third game. And it's also great. And the fourth game doesn't have as much polish. The core team, like the most talented staffers, didn't work on that one. But it was designed by it was directed, I was going to say, by the scenario director from Silent Hill 2 and 3, I think. Which kind of explains why that's more of a sort of experimental title. Because that's kind of where he gets his teeth from. You know, he did the scenario direction. And that's also a good game. So you have this era of just, we have a small studio, but we have talented team members, and we have technological limitations strict enough that we can deliver on this machine, the PlayStation 2, just like a team 3 times our size and 10 times our budget can deliver. And those days are long gone, sadly. So if you want a really good Silent Hill game, and this is why I'm urging everybody, like, yes, Silent Hill Ascension, by all accounts, is dog shit. I haven't played it, so and I never will. It looks like complete garbage in every facet. And I feel really bad for the developers who worked on that thing. A lot of them are probably, actual Silent Hill fans who are like, yes, we get our hands on this license, and it's just horrible monetization options, horrible presentation, all of that stuff just accumulates, and it's like, well, they carved up your baby and killed it. But I think Silent Hill is actually in a really good place. I don't think we're in some sort of lull. The lull was those 9 years when we didn't get any games. But the reason I think it's in a really good place is because Konami is so very hands-off with this. They just went, we'll give everybody who wants it their own Silent Hill game. And that's actually a pretty good approach if you're only looking at getting good ones. So I would imagine they're not completely hands-off, obviously, and their involvement on the day-to-day is probably mixed depending on which game it is. So Silent Hill 2 Remake, probably Konami executives are very hands-off. But the Silent Hill F, for example, I don't know, maybe not as much. And that sort of lack of executive/producer oversight, that's the conditions you need to make something that's really interesting. And I don't think all of the new Silent Hill projects look good. I think most of them look bad. But still, we might get a good one, and I think the odds are better that at least one of them will be good than none of them will be good. This is a grave desecration, a blasphemous violation. Oh, you don't really play it? No, it's like a thing you watch, right? You watch. Shattered Memories is 10 out of 10. I already addressed your love of Silent Hill Shattered Memories, Whiskey. And it's not just you. A lot of people like Shattered Memories. I don't really want to play it, but I probably will someday. If Konami is hands off, why is there so much monetization? Konami is not the only company in the world that likes to make money. And, you know, I wouldn't put it past Konami to have been the culprits behind the monetization bloat of Silent Hill Ascension. But I think that's also just kind of downstream of how that game is pitched to them. You know, if you tell them that, yeah, we're going to make a mini-series that people can vote on how the story evolves. Yeah, obviously, Konami executives are going to be like, oh, hey, yeah, and they have to pay money to vote. So, like, you know, how did anybody ever think this was going to be anything other than just this horrible nickel and diming, you know, cutscene simulator thing? Whereas Silent Hill 2 Remake, I'm not looking forward to that particularly, but that has much better odds of being good than Ascension ever did. How are you gonna nickel and dime people with that? You're gonna give them like, oh, it's an extra gun if you pre-order for an extra $10 or something like that. Yeah, that's pretty part and parcel of how games are sold these days. The people in charge are NFT bros. Ooh. Look, controversial take. I think NFT technology, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then it was just this bloat of get-rich-quick schemes on my Twitter timeline, and I was like, I think that what I thought was interesting about this technology is not what everyone else thinks was interesting. So yeah, I think even the Anil Parsons, I don't remember his name, the guy who created NFTs, I think he walked away from it when he saw that it was just being appropriated for those sorts of PNG scams. Is anybody still like big into NFTs? I think everybody who was into it has been thoroughly burnt enough that they're not going to defend it. I'll call it a scam. It's an alternative reality game. You ever see some streamers that list task donations as goals? It's like that. Yeah. And like, it's interesting that they even went the mile of doing like, we're gonna make a Silent Hill for the streaming age. It's like, oh, okay. Are you gonna make it a horror game then? You know, because people like to see streamers be scared and tense. It's fun. And also, we're in actually a really interesting place for AAA horror games. You know, the Resident Evil remakes, they keep churning them out, and they're good. Resident Evil, these are really good games. These are probably the best sort of mainstream cinematic AAA games we're getting. Or maybe I'm just really still riding off the high of Resident Evil 2 remake. I really like the 4th remake, but Resident Evil 2 remake, that's where it really is. I think monetization is Konami's thing. Whoever's thing it is, I don't think that's something that's super replicatable across the entire new Silent Hill lineup. It would be amazing if every new Silent Hill game is just destroyed by these terrible monetization policies. Ascension also seems like a cynical attempt to engineer what grew organically around Supermassive's games. That's a good point, Gazative. I'm not super familiar with that whole scene, but that's interesting. Ascension looks so bad. I had no idea it could get that bad. I think Silent Hill F has the most potential. Yes. Okay, so there's a few things I want to touch on in this stream here. I want to talk about, if people are interested, I'd like to maybe spend some minutes later talking about what I think you need to do to make a good Silent Hill game. But I also really agree with this take that Silent Hill F has the most potential. And the reason I think that is because it looks the least like a Silent Hill game. Which maybe sounds a bit counterintuitive, but when you look at the trailer for Silent Hill F, I, at least, get the feeling that this was a story somebody sat down and wanted to tell. Because they didn't go to Silent Hill. It's set in some Japanese village in the 60s. And we actually have Quesadiv in chat, so does anybody want to talk about the Japanese horror movie new wave of the 60s and 70s? She's your gal. But Silent Hill 2 Remake, to me, that's, I look at it and I'm like, I'm not trusting them. You know, I think that there's a lot of things you need to do right, and I don't. It's not that like Team Blooper. I think you just. It's not even the problem with the developers because if you have a good creative director in charge of the project, I think the other circumstances don't really matter. I think a good director can get really good work out of even a mediocre team, and I'm not saying Team Blooper is that. I'm just saying a lot of people don't like their games, and I don't think they are like the death nail for Silent Hill 2 Remake. I think the problem with Silent Hill 2 Remake is that it just feels very cynical. You know, we're going to start remaking our games, and we're going to start on the second one, the one that everybody liked. And it's like, well, okay. Resident Evil 2 Remake came out, and that was like, you know, they had done Resident Evil 1 Remake, but there is a part of me that's like, was there some producer over at Konami who decided to start with Silent Hill 2 because he didn't know that Resident Evil Remake exists, and he just thought, oh, they started remaking their games on the second one? I don't know. Apparently some financial data talks about that they have multiple Silent Hill remakes in the works, and it's bizarre, you know. Story-wise, you can sort of justify it because James Sunderland's story is very removed from the happenings of the first and the third game. Not completely removed, but very much removed. Whereas 1 and 3, they, you know, these are, Silent Hill 3 is a direct sequel to Silent Hill 1, and you don't really get a good sense of what is happening in this game if you haven't played the first game. So I guess on that front, you could argue it's a good idea to not, you know, to remake those two closer together. I don't grant anybody involved in that decision making the benefit of the doubt that that's what they were thinking. You need a Silent Hill OG remake. You can just play the original. But yeah, I think Silent Hill 1 is probably, if there is going to be a good Silent Hill remake, I think Silent Hill... No, you know, I think Silent Hill 4 might possibly be the one that's really good. Because Silent Hill 4 is the game that's sort of most missing polish, and it's most in dire need of somebody to just come in there and clean it up. Just like prune all the bad stuff out and just really focus the the sort of narrative thrust. And I think that's something that a remake actually could accomplish. Silent Hill 4 is a flawed masterpiece. Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 are just masterpieces. No flaws, nothing to improve on. But if you're going to do remakes, and I talked about this in the Silent Hill announcement stream, I want them to change as much as possible. I hate visual remakes. I hate the idea of, this is like Demon Souls or Shadow of the Colossus. If all you're doing is just spiffing up the graphics, you're wasting my time, and you're kind of ruining the original game, because Sony's not going to put out original Demon Souls again. They're going to, when they market the PlayStation 6 and it has backwards compatibility, the PSN store is not going to have OG Demon Souls. It's going to have Demon Souls Remake and Shadow of the Colossus Remake. And it's like, well, the original games are works of art that deserve to be preserved. I'm less miffed when they make big drastic changes, because then the game sort of exists as its own thing. Like Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 2 Remake, these are not the same games. Playing one doesn't really supplement playing the other than you kind of get an idea of what the happenings are. But these are very different kinds of experiences. The room took place not from far from Silent Hill, so the cult existing outside of it was believable. Not sure how that will be possible for F unless a Japanese cult like Siren. I don't think Silent Hill F is really gonna care that much about continuity. Like, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they just went, oh, Fog and A Nightmare World. And then they just wrote their own lore and own story. And you know what? Just own it. Make it as little as a Silent Hill game as you possibly can. Don't shackle yourself down to the Silent Hill license. Or if you're gonna do that, maybe you should actually, and this really ties into Silent Hill Ascension, if you're going to shackle yourself to the conventions of the license, maybe you should sit down and actually play the games before you write your story. Like this sequence here. Is this ash? Are these little ash flakes falling? They certainly seem to be two-dimensional. And that would be really interesting. Look at this one. Look at this.
Okay.
Little 2D flakes flying around. Doesn't seem like snow to me. Looks more like ash. And that's interesting because Masahiro Ito has basically built a Twitter account by continually telling people that Centralia in Pennsylvania, where the movie was filmed, with the coal fire stuff, was not at all involved when they were making Silent Hill. They didn't base it on that. There is no coal fire. It's snow. Silent Hill 1 is not covered in ash. It's just snow. The movie had ash. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, did these guys just watch the Did they just watch the movie? Are you kidding me? Big swings are the way to go. Yeah, absolutely. It's more unsettling to have snow in the summer than ash falling from the sky. Yeah.
Exactly as I was taught. Every word, every cut.
Yeah, look at this.
But what I saw, it was something new, something we don't understand.
Oh my god, it's a lying figure creeping outside.
Even Radcliffe himself was frightened by the things he saw. But while others saw a monster, he saw salvation.
And you can really feel from this trailer. This game feels to me to have been put together by somebody whose main forte probably wasn't game design. They really are emphasizing the narrative, the story, the writing, the acting. And Silent Hill, if you play the original Silent Hill games, they have dog shit writing, and they actually have pretty good writing. They just have really janky performances. I'm not gonna blaspheme here and call out Jeremy Blaustein's writing. He actually did a pretty good job, but the performances are not this. This is like acting. Silent Hill's performances are more just like people stumbling into weird dream spaces.
Most in this town would celebrate one less Johansson.
Oh wow, it's like a story about a cursed family. Acer, the argument of hardware becoming less and less accessible and affordable, thus making playing the OG games, these remakes keeps the games playable. Emulators aren't perfect either. Yeah, but that's just like not true. These remakes aren't keeping the games playable. They are replacing the games. And like, I'm sorry, but if you have the money to throw in an entire visual remake, Metal Gear Solid Subsistence had MGX and MGX2 on the disc. You could still play those original games. If Silent Hill 2 Remake launched and it had the original Silent Hill 2 playable, I'd be a happy guy. I'd be like, okay, I still have my original one and you guys get the remake one, and now we can preserve the original into the future. The idea that you have to remake a game to keep it playable, this is just really, I think this is really dangerous thinking. You don't need to repaint the Mona Lisa to keep her accessible. They do that though. They do touch up old paintings, but video games are just code, man. You have the code. You can just preserve the code, and emulation is getting better and better and better. And the idea that PlayStation can't just have a good native emulator, I think, is kind of ridiculous. If they cared about preservation, they would just do that, and they'd maybe lose, I don't know, $5 million a year or something to preserve their original lineup. But if they cared, that's what they would do.
You've seen them, haven't you?
Yeah. Night Dive Studios, excellent example, preserving old games. These new games are replacing the old ones, not just new takes. It's not like RE on GameCube, where it was so good and faithful it replaced but actively attempted to rewrite. Yeah. They did not preserve the code for 2. Well, see, that there's a bit more to that story. Because Konami, they have the code to Silent Hill 2. They just don't know where it is. And even if they don't, I mean, you know, if you don't have the original code, if you just have the code from like, I don't know, 6 months before release, you could just have a guy sit down, maybe with, you know, 5 people, I don't know, assemble a team, sit down, play the original game, and play it a couple of times, you know, take a lot of notes, take the code that they have access to, and actually just, we're gonna faithfully recreate the original game. And you know what? There's gonna be little nicks, there's gonna be little changes, but we're not gonna, you know, that sort of lazy HD collection approach they had. No, you have to actually do it right. And if you cared, you would do it right. And even then, I mean, you can still play the original game. We still have it, you know, there's like that enhanced edition that is always sort of floating around the internet. They could just take that, market that, and if you can't throw it up to 4K, if you can't give me 60 frames per second, whatever, preserve it in the form that you have it in. Nintendo of all people are the ones holding the fort on preservation. Yeah, I mean, the Virtual Store has done a lot of good. The Virtual Store has done a lot of good on that one. Most of the remake feels as if they were ashamed of their roots. Some older codes plus a decompiler would make it relatively trivial, to be honest. Yeah.
Rachel, visions.
Hold on, there's a sequence here that I want to talk about. No, it's not that. Oh, more ash falling from the sky, guys. Oh, how I love this. This is not a Silent Hill monster. Like, this mangled human body covered in barbed wire, this is not representative of Silent Hill. Silent Hill, even at its like grottiest, Silent Hill wasn't this. This is like torture. This is the Silent Hill movie. This is like informed by Saw and stuff like that. Silent Hill always had a bit more elegance in its enemy design. Like, they looked mangled and disfigured and such, but there was more of a sense, I feel, of sort of tragedy to it, where the grotesqueness wasn't really the point, and the sort of visceral pain of the enemies like wasn't really the point. Like, the room where you fight the abstract daddy, it has like those cylinders that shoot in and out of the walls, to give you like a good idea of what the fight represents to Angela. And when you see Pyramid Head abusing the mannequins, there's no like actual penetration or anything like that. It's just like you insinuate the grotesqueness. You don't need to actually show it. It's just fine. It's elegant. I think Acer loves this. Like, you know, I think it's fine, you know, whatever. This whole trailer feels soulless. Yeah, it feels very much like a plot. Oh, he punched him. Oh my god, look at this.
I didn't kill my son.
Whoa! Like, here's the Silent Hill drop. It's like, whoa, it's regardly about somebody who killed their son.
You don't have that in you. But what if I do?
Oof. That delivery. Let's listen to this again.
In you. But what if I do?
Whoa. That's crazy. I didn't kill my son. You don't have it in you, baby. But what if I do? Yeah, it looks terrible. Masahiro Ito said on Twitter yesterday that he hates splatter, gore, horror, and relies on BDSM-informed designs. Yeah. He also said in an interview once that the human form is really at the forefront of the monster designs in Silent Hill. So yes, you have like pterodactyls and dogs, but and the creepers, but like here you have the closer. This is just a human being. And when you look at like the cancers, the insane cancers, they're just really like fat people, and the lying figures are just like people stuck in bondage. And you have the abstract daddy, and that's just like a guy with a tarp drawing framed inside a bed. It's always the twisting of the human form, and that's where the uncomfortable feeling and association comes from. You don't need to have like a spike sticking out of their head or anything like that. That's fully too much. Fully too much. Reminder that the stiltedness in Silent Hill 2's voice performance was very intentional. Yes and no. I think that if Jeremy Blostein has said that if he could have done it again, he wouldn't have hired Guy Seehee to play James Sunderland. I think that's not because he didn't like the performance, though. I think it's because he felt he was kind of cheated into hiring Guy Seehee because he felt bad for him. Not realizing that Guy Seehee was some like financial millionaire who he just gave a job because he's like, well, I'll help the little guy out. But yeah, this one, the voice acting more just felt like somebody who maybe English isn't their first language. Which is fine. I think that bad line delivery is always the fault of the director. Lying figures are dudes in a sweatshirt. Do you think these new Silent Hills will be more of the Amnesia school of horror games of the past decade? See, my big fear is that the new Silent Hill games are just going to be The Last of Us, but Silent Hill, where, you walk and you can crouch and you have your gun and you point the gun by pointing the camera, and it's just this wishy-washy, completely identity devoid gameplay that doesn't inform any sort of atmosphere or doesn't apply feeling to the gameplay. And then it's just gonna be, it's Silent Hill because look, it takes place in a dingy bathroom. Whereas these Silent Hill games, there's a lot of mechanics that do the heavy lifting of propping up the experience here. So let's just that you have tank controls, and I know tank controls, love them, hate them. I'm not opposed to just let's do another tank control Silent Hill game. Are we babies here? Baldur's Gate 3 sold like 100 million copies. You're telling me that people aren't willing to throw their hat in for another tank control Silent Hill game made with love? You kidding me? Another good mechanic, and I've talked about this to no end in my Silent Hill videos. When you have the radio and you enter an area, the radio will buzz with static before you see the enemies, to just let you know that they're there. Because if you're walking and you see the enemy, you get startled. But when you know the enemy is there because of the radio, you don't get startled anymore. You just sort of you just sort of drag out the tension of like, there's an enemy with me, and I'm gonna rotate the clunky feeling camera, and I'm gonna see it, and then you don't see it, and you're like, it's at the other side of the corner. There's a lot of great horror set piece direction that they get out of that mechanic, and my big fear with the way the new Silent Hill games are going to play is that they're going to do all of that emotion and all of that sort of storytelling and direction. They're going to try to do all of that in the cutscenes and in the environmental designs. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Silent Hill had such good direction. I'd hate to see this just become The Last of Us. And I don't think they're going to do the Amnesia thing of you can't fight the enemies. I'm not opposed to that, though. Like, if you do, like, anything can be done well. Anything can be done well. Pyramid Head is literally just a guy with a weird helmet and a butcher's apron. Yep. It's trauma. I don't know a single person in real life that likes tank controls. Seems like a very niche in my personal experience. I like tank controls, so maybe you don't know me in real life. Maybe you just know me in fake life. Um, but you know, there's some of us. We exist. We're out there. We exist. We exist. And it's not a question of, you know, this is also another thing that sort of gets lost when a studio loses its ability to mandate, like set its own mandate, when you don't have the founder and when it's just like another arm of a gigantic faceless company. The idea that your game isn't for everyone sort of disappears, and all of a sudden it's, well, you know, we sold 1 million copies, but if we add this, now we can sell 2 million copies. And then it's like, but like Ratchet and Clank is a wonderful example of this, where if you play the original Ratchet and Clank games, it's very apparent, and I'm sure, I don't know if Ted Price or Mike Stout or Brian Hastings or any of the Insomniac guys, I don't know what their stance on this would be today, but if you had asked them back then, or like Mark Cerny, if you had asked them back then, they would have told you that the Ratchet and Clank games were games for boys. That's not to say girls didn't like them. My little sister and I, we loved Ratchet and Clank. But they were clearly designed for boys. And because of that, they have a certain sensibility that they don't have anymore. And they don't have that anymore because they went the Pixar route of, wait a minute, we can please everyone. And it's like, well, you know, the original games did please everyone who liked that sensibility. But now that you've sort of watered it down to make it accessible to everyone, nobody's going to fall in love with it because it doesn't have its own identity. Silent Hill, likewise, you know, there's a reason Silent Hill has so many women in the community, and no, it's not because of dresses or anything like that. It's because Silent Hill. Well, first of all, I think these are some of the first video games, sort of mature video games, that had well-written women characters. You know, this is launching in the time where your average video game heroine is just like a lady in a thong. But yeah, so the idea of the games sort of losing their uniqueness because there's a push from above to appeal to a wider demographic of gamers, some of whom might be repelled by the unique quirks of the license. You know, I'm really, that might be the most important thing to get right, because this game, Silent Hill 3, this game is about abortion. Takayoshi Sato said that for psychological horror, what you really need, most games were back then. Yeah, that's actually true. Most games were for boys back then. But anyways, for to deliver on psychological horror, Takayoshi Sato said that you need to sort of shake the human heart, and that's why Silent Hill is often so brazenly walking into really controversial areas. Like Silent Hill 2 is about abuse and it's about euthanasia, but it's not just like a condemnation or a lecture. At the end of the game, you're like, man, you know, James Sunderland is a murderer, but I still sympathize very deeply with him because they didn't half-ass it. And this game is about abortion, and it is so uncomfortable to see some of the enemy designs and how they sort of relate to how the cult impregnates Heather. But at the end of the game, hold on, we can probably find it here. Is this it? No, this is not it. Where is it? Where is it? Ah, here it is. We found it. Here, at the end of the game... Oh, wait, this is Alessa's room. Doesn't she go into Harry's bedroom next? Where's the sequence where she goes into Harry's bedroom? Damn it. Yeah, like you have this sequence here where Claudia is a bit um not dubious. What's the word I'm looking for here? She's a bit conflicted about performing the ritual. I don't know where the sequence is anymore. I used to be able to find it. But there's a sequence here where you visit a manifestation of Harry's bedroom, where he's talking about how he was really scared when he got the child from Alessa at the end of the first game. And it's like, oh, but then it's like, he keeps talking about it throughout the letter, and he's like, I thought that I had been handed a monster, but no, this child that I didn't want is actually my greatest treasure. And like, you know, people have their opinions on abortion, but Silent Hill 3 isn't just like, it's not a one-sided lecture. It actually explores the conversation from really deep perspectives. And you're like, wow, you know, that's really beautiful. Wish I could have found that. Also, like, the cancers there, they relate to body image. But that's something that I don't think you can get if you have, like, a marketing guy in charge of your game, because to try to market them a game that's like, I want to make a game about the ethics of euthanasia, and I'm gonna look at it from both perspectives, and I'm actually gonna give a lot of credence and respect to both sides. You know, or you can just make a game about a scary monster that's like a manifestation of trauma. It's trauma for like the 500th time. Every one of these horror games is secretly about somebody's trauma. It is beyond played out, you know? Where Claudia is a bit, I was expecting that to end differently. What is a game for boys? So like Ratchet and Clank, it's just like an aesthetic thing. You look at it and it's like, well, yeah, they clearly designed this game to be played by boys. Like, all the marketing is all about like big guns and explosions and such. Whereas a game for girls is all about like pink and horses. It's obviously, you know, it's obviously not the case. And you can play whatever game you like, but it's just like the aesthetic of Ratchet and Clank. Like, look at the trailers for the earlier Ratchet and Clank games. And then look at the trailers for the later Ratchet and Clank games. You're like, well, one of these games had a much more specific demographic in mind, marketing-wise at least. Positives of suicide? Yeah, like Silent Hill 3, the Silent Hill series, the original 4 games at least, they really, like, they had things to say about really taboo subjects. Silent Hill 4 was based on a book. It was called Coin Locker Babies, the book. It's a really harrowing story. So the idea is that in Japan, you have these coin lockers. You know, you put a coin in, and then you have a locker, and you can access the locker for like an hour or something like that. You can just sort of lease out these lockers. And I don't know if it was an actual epidemic of this or if the book made it up, but the idea is that babies are left behind in these lockers, and when the next person opens it, they're just like an infant baby there. And it's sort of the story of what it is like for an infant to grow up completely unwanted. And you see that story play out, and we'll talk about this a lot when it comes to the Silent Hill 4 commentary. Coming soon. It's like, that's the story of Walter Sullivan. And you think, like, why did he think the apartment was his mother? Well, gee, guys, maybe it has something to do with who he is as a character and how that narrative informs the way he sort of grows and matures, and that feeling of being completely unwanted and just being completely abandoned by the world. Again, like, difficult, taboo subjects that sort of, it's very easy for any of these words to sort of, like, you can say abortion or euthanasia, and it's like, it excites the emotion, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions on it, but if you approach the story with humility, and that's something Silent Hill had a lot of, it had the humility to respect its audience. Like, if you're going to play these games, we're going to respect that you're going to be able to just parse it out and not get too emotional and just invest yourself in the narrative. And that's very beautiful, it's very artistic, but is that very marketing friendly? I don't know. I think remaking the games is much more marketing friendly. The CEO of Genvit was shit talking Silent Hill F. The lack of grain is making you sick. Yeah, it really needs that sort of filter applied all over it. See, my recollection is that you go to Harry's room right before this sequence. There's the puzzle. Yeah, but this is like Claudia's room. They're playing the game all wrong. That's what's happening here. It's difficult to write a good antagonist that isn't some baby-eating monster. It's even harder to write a baby-eating monster that isn't comically evil. Yeah. Yeah, and what is so wild about this is that, and this is really counterintuitive to how you would think it would be, but when you just have a team of like 15 nerds, they can write this. You know, they have Jeremy Blaustein to sort of iron out the script, but they're able to do this. But when you have like 15 highly educated, specific writers, you don't get anything remotely as emotional as Silent Hill 3. So, if you want a good Silent Hill game, you know, cliff notes here. If you want a good Silent Hill game, get a team that's talented and get a director that's talented and just let them make a good one. Don't try to force it. Don't lock them into a specific vision or anything like that. Just let them go wild. And that's what it seems like Konami's doing. And yeah, Silent Hill Ascension is a dud. It's a bad experience by all accounts, but you know, swings and roundabouts. They can't all be great. Sometimes you get a bad one. Well, James is traumatized. That isn't really what the story is about. Probably 99% of horror stories would be about trauma. Yeah. I mean, it's also this idea of, well, the horror is just, like, the threats are the manifestations of trauma. And, like I said, this has been done to death. There is no new take to be had on this. If your story is secretly, like, if you have a plot twist reveal where we learn that, oh my god, you're like, the real threat was just the trauma your character had experienced, it's like, okay, this has been done to death. Don't do this. Because there's nothing to it. Also, oh my god, look at how good this game still looks. This is a 20-year-old game. It looks better than most things that come out today. Look at this. Oh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Character conflict and turmoil isn't a foreign thing to any story, you know. Silent Hill Ascension is fun to dunk on. Yeah, you know, I think that's kind of like the best thing to come out of this whole Silent Hill Ascension debacle is that people get a new fun game that you can all dunk on, and I don't think there is anybody really willing to defend it. So I think people feel free to dunk. Feel free to dunk with clean consciences. There was next to no hype around Ascension, so I'm not the least surprised by what I've seen. Yeah, I think that's also something else you see in these sorts of projects. The more they, quote-unquote, market the games, you know, the more buzzwords and stuff they throw around when they're showing you the game, the less faith they have in the game as a complete work, and the more it's just like, wow, you know, you really needed to bust people out on stage to get me excited about this, so I ain't that excited about it. To call Ascension bad is the gaming understatement of the decade. Do you guys think, because Gollum released earlier this year and everyone was like, well, that's clearly the worst game of the year. It's like, well, you know, there's always somebody. I saw unironically many curious / positive supporters of Ascension. The world can be very varied, it seems. Oof. Yeah. Gollum and King Kong could have been worst games of the year. Yeah, but then... You have to be grateful that Konami is giving attention to the series. Yeah, like, no, you don't have to be. Konami giving attention to the series means nothing, because most of the games Konami has greenlit, most of the games we've gotten have been complete trash. You have nothing to be grateful for. If you get a good game, you can be grateful for getting a good game. But this idea that, well, at least it's something. No. If it's bad, it's bad, and I'm not gonna like. I don't understand people who just love a franchise. Oh, I love Batman. I buy anything Batman related. If it's a Batman book, I buy the Batman book, and I watch the Batman movie. Even if it's bad, I'm gonna watch it because I love Batman. You can like the good stuff and not like the bad stuff, right? You don't need to like all of it. Sometimes there's a good Silent Hill game. Most of the time there's bad Silent Hill games, and you can just like the good ones and not care about the bad ones. And you don't owe these companies any allegiance. Like Konami, you don't owe Konami a salute because they greenlit some shitty product and slapped the Silent Hill name on it. This is ridiculous. Any thoughts on the new Metal Gear Solid 3 remake? Basically, I think this is a horrible product. I'm not as offended as I am with the Demon Souls or Shadow of the Colossus remakes. It is just a visual upgrade by all accounts. They might do, they're gonna tidy up the gameplay probably. They're Snake's movements probably going to be a lot more intuitive. But Snake Eater, Metal Gear Solid Subsistence exists on all platforms. This game has been it's not abandonware. It exists in many places, and they're even I think they're didn't they just announce another legacy project where they're just bringing the games up to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X? So I'm not excited about it because it doesn't seem like they're changing anything. They're even using the original voice lines because they're too cheap to pay the actors again. I probably won't play it. I've played the original. I haven't seen anything from the remake that makes me excited about it. Are you saying that it's not good to be a blind consumer? Exactly. Listen, kids, I'm gonna tell you all about society today. People tie their identities to franchises. One game touched them, so they form emotional ties and allegiances to it. Yeah. It's tragic. My guess is that it's going to be Metal Gear Solid 3 with Metal Gear Solid 5 gameplay. Yeah. I've actually I saw some video on Twitter that, a couple of GIFs on Twitter that had, Snake taking cover, and it was the same animation frames as him taking cover from the Phantom Pain, and, the aiming looked very similar. It's did they just mimic the animations and swap out the model or something like that? It's possible. And, honestly, that's not the worst thing they could have done. But if you're gonna remake it, change it up. Do something new with it. Create some new challenges. Create some new scenarios. Spiff it up some. If you're just gonna do it all over again, just remaster the original. Metal Gear Solid 3, but you get camos via a gacha gambling system. Does anyone have anything positive to say about anything? I do. I'm very positive about Silent Hill. I think these games are going to become I'm pretty sure one of these Silent Hill games is going to be good. I think the indie scene is the hope of the future of games. Yeah. I've talked about this many times on stream too. Just the idea that you have talented developers who just I make a living and I have a fan base of 10,000 people and they buy my games and I just make weird fun games for them and that pays my bills. That's incredible. That did not exist 20 years ago. And if that market keeps growing, and hopefully it will, the idea of every game is going to be this gigantic bloated product made by 60 people overworked and crunched out to try to eke out any sort of margin by cramming in a lot of horrible monetization schemes and scams. why would you do that? If you're a developer, why would you work like that when you could just make your own indie games and you could just have a dedicated following? Sounds like a wonderful setup for me. And if that means people don't get as many big bloated AAA trash games, then I don't particularly care. I don't cry for them. They didn't cry for me when I lost the games I really liked when they stopped making them. So I don't have a lot of sympathy to shed to them. Bananas are pretty nice. That's true. That's new. Shattered Memories wasn't that bad. Wow, we have two Shattered Memories stands. This is a legit full negativity stream. No, I'm an optimist, guys. I'm just an optimist on kind of a long time scale. I don't think things are going to become better today. If you think there's something drastic going to happen to save the industry and save the video games this year, yeah, you're kind of fooling yourself. But think about it in terms of 10 years. That's a much better way of thinking about things. These things take time. Hate the if you have nothing positive to say, don't say anything attitude. Why would you praise that which is not praiseworthy? Yeah, I think people are allowed to complain. Because I really like Silent Hill, and I'm looking at Silent Hill games that aren't all that good, and that are just these horribly shallow, barely disguised, gambling systems and loot box delivery systems. I'm just I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to complain about this? Ridiculous. Origins was better than Shat. Shattered Memories is a fun concept, but it really shouldn't have been forced to carry the Silent Hill name. It just gave it a ridiculously high standard to live up to that it was never meant to try to meet. It took years for games to really go down the crapper. It will take years for them to be fished back out. Yeah. And I talked earlier about how there was this divergence between what a small team can do and a big team can do with the 7th generation. That gap isn't widening anymore. Every single advancement in CG rendering, for example, makes life twice as easy for a small developer. It doesn't make things go twice as fast for a team of 300 people. Every single incremental progress made on game engines and modeling engines and animations and such, it's just the gap is now beginning to narrow again. And all of a sudden, a team of 10 people are becoming more every single time these tools get better, the small teams get disproportionately better and more powerful than the big teams get. And if gamers are okay with playing games that don't have crazy graphics, then things could just sort of even out, and we can get off this horrible keel that we're on, and just things rebalance and become good again. Most of the Silent Hill games after 4 would have been seen better without the name Silent Hill on them. Yeah, possible. What about one of my great 6-hour videos with Silent Hill 4? For me, it's my second favorite after 2, please. And then you did the fingers emoji. Silent Hill 4 commentary is the next, or the video after the next video that I'm making. I have the Grass Estes video that's going up now in November, maybe December. I have the Bioshock 2 script ready. I want to just release that so I have something to release, so that you don't have just this drought of 6 months without a video. And then Silent Hill 4 commentary. It's coming. Dad? I like Origins. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it does a good job of almost feeling like one. That's fair. And that's another thing. I don't like a lot of the Silent Hill games, but it's also just I'm kind of an elitist, but I'm not I'm not telling people. Okay, this is actually. This is really annoying me. Look at the way the shadows are cast. Like, you can kind of see where her in cutscene mask is inserted on her face. I don't think they're mapped to the same shading script as the neck. I don't know. Maybe having the grainy filter helped. But yeah, you know, people are allowed to like whatever they like, man. And, you know, I don't chew people out for that. If you liked Origins, you can just be an idiot. And nah, I'm joking. If you liked Origins, you can like Origins. It's fine. Also, this is the same model as they had for James Sunderland's corpse in the in the Blue Creek Blueside Hillside apartments in Silent Hill 2. Downpour would have been remembered as a decent 7th gen survival horror if it didn't have to live up to the same mind space as Homecoming. Let's go. How long is it? The Silent Hill 4 commentary? It's probably 3-4 hours long. Silent Hill 3 has I think it's not going to be as long as the Silent Hill 2 or the 3 commentaries, but it's probably not going to be that much shorter, like maybe half an hour to an hour shorter. I'll probably edit some of that because there's there's a lot of footage there that I don't have a lot to say about. So it'll be a bit edited. Whereas like the Silent Hill 3 and 2 commentaries, I try to hide the editing as much as I possibly could. So for the Silent Hill 3 one, I'm probably gonna skip like little sequences here and there, but it'll still be it'll be the whole experience. It's just not gonna be quite as much to talk about. It'll be a little bit shorter. Acer, I'm kind of an elitist, also drops nukes almost in every streams. Look, it's okay to be an elitist. It doesn't hurt anybody. Editing is good. Never forget what Hitchcock said about it. Yeah, he said, I'm gonna edit this bitch. I'm gonna edit the F out of this Psycho movie. That's what he said. I don't care about the damn birds. I'm gonna edit them. I'm gonna edit. Spot on. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know, chat. Do we have anything more to say? Do we want to maybe do a little bit of QA, or should we just close this down? I know there's some people watching this at work, so maybe we can give them 5 minutes more content by asking some interesting questions. Who's my favorite Silent Hill antagonist? Ooh. Even though it tends to be the black sheep of the quadrilogy, most people seem to actually like Walter Sullivan quite a bit. Yeah, it might be Claudia, because I think Claudia has a really, Dahlia Gillespie has, she's just like a crazy cult leader from a Stephen King book. But Claudia, she has that Walter Sullivan thing where you can sort of see how scarred she is from the cult, but she also works as a really interesting reflection of Heather. They're both the daughters, because Silent Hill 3 is very much about how the daughters' relationships with their fathers shaped who they were. And she's abused and forced by her father into this horrible cult. And the only good thing she ever had in her life was Alessa. And then she looks at Harry taking Alessa away from her. And she sees that, oh, well, I still have Heather. Heather is Alessa. I can just sort of reawaken that in her. And she's like, she has that pull towards Heather because Alessa was her best friend. She was like her big sister. And now to try to sort of reclaim her to fulfill her, quote unquote, destiny with the cult, she kills her father to sort of awaken the emotional response. And it's just like, you're pushing this, the one good thing you had in your life has been sort of recreated in Heather. and you're destroying your capacity, your ability to ever have a good relationship with her because you've been indoctrinated into this cult. And I really like that. That's a really sort of interesting conflict that she has with her. So yeah, probably it's Claudia. But I do also like Walter. My thoughts on Silent Hill 4 are not as fully formed as on the other ones because I haven't spent 3 months putting together a commentary on it yet. I haven't thought about every little minute thing. It might be Walter after I do the commentary, but for now it's probably Claudia. Also, I really like Donna Burke's performance. Give me more work time content. Acer Director voice. Have I played Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth? I have played it. I haven't completed it. I played up until the stealth mission in Innsmouth. It's really close to the beginning of the game. And I think I failed that 3 times in a row. This was like 10, 15 years ago. I failed it like 3 times in a row, and then I was like, this game sucks. But apparently it's having a bit of a sort of resurgence. Apparently people are like, well, you know, there's more to this game than meets the eye. And I'm seeing a lot of the guys I follow in the indie game scene are actually really pushing for that game. So maybe, you know, I think I actually talked about this. We might do a Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth stream one day. My workload has gotten crazy. So, by the way, you know, I was saying that, they sort of layer the abortion theme into the enemy design. Like, yeah, that's this, baby. But yeah, my workload has gotten crazy, so I don't expect to be streaming full games anytime soon. And I've kind of run out of the good GDC streams, so what are we gonna stream? But yeah, I think that would be fun. Vincent is edgy too. Vincent is edgy too. Women like Silent Hill 3 because it's in part about daddy issues. Yeah, half joking. I mean, I think women like Silent Hill 3 because it has, you know, it's a game from 2003 and it actually has really well written, really well realized women characters, which is just like video games didn't really do that back then, and in many cases still don't today. I think that kind of answers that too. Big fan of the mace, you know, going with the mace strategy. Call of Cthulhu is severely lacking polish. Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth is fantastic. All right. Relax, chat. Maybe I'll play it. Relax. Update on the moth. Oh, I can give you a bit of an update on the moth. Oh, I'll give you an update. I'll update you on the moth. No. I can keep this playing while I look for it. Jesus. Here we go. Moth time, baby. Yeah. It looks pretty nice. Right? I don't hate this. Was that good content? We cooking? It's not fantastic, you bastard. It has fantastic segments between complete unfun. I know you weren't talking about the moth. You were talking about Call of Cthulhu. Yeah, it's I'll need to see it, or maybe Signals. Dumb moth. Most classic survival horror games have good female characters. That's actually kind of true. It's interesting how horror games are like the best representation women ever got in video games. Like, am I even wrong about that? Um, that is interesting. I wonder why that. I guess. I wonder why that is. There's probably some reason. Acer's favorite Vesper is Snail. I actually really like Freud. You want Spoo? You need Spoo. I don't have Spoo. I'm sorry. I'm not Skeletor. Snail and Till. Why does the moth have snail eyes? Because the game is called Snail. Mandibles. Because it's a snail. It's also just like, you know, sometimes moth have those. They have those little horn thingies. Also, it's just like, it looks cooler that way. If I do Signalis, you'll watch after you finish it yourself. Well, maybe we'll stream Signalis. Just like horror movies. Yeah, Kuan, Siren, Fatal Frame, Silent Hill 3, Hunting Ground, Rule of Rose. Yeah. All female characters. Yeah. Resident Evil. You know, I'd throw Resident Evil in there too. Moths are like my top 5 for nature's creatures. Moths are always good. That's good. Bayonetta. She's not a horror game character. Comes from the tradition of horror movies with lady protagonists. Yeah, I guess. And like, horror games do have that thing of, there's no like middle way. Either the horror works or it doesn't. So the expectations for quality are just higher all around. That might be what pushed it through. Clock Tower, yeah. Clock Tower is just Jennifer Connelly. I love Jennifer Connelly. She's great. She's actually really good in The Rocketeer. I love that movie. There's a really funny sequence. You couldn't put it in a movie today, but there's a really funny sequence in that movie where a guy is being introduced to her, like a producer or somebody, and he's like, he takes her hand and he's like, charmed, and then he looks at her breasts and he's like, double charmed. It's just like this. Who wrote this? It's insane. Oh, you love me? Thank you, Mori. Thank you, Mori Nando. I love you too. She's a witch though. Game is great. You say that, but I'd say Evil Dead the movie didn't work as horror, but it totally worked as comedy. Oh, I don't think any of the Evil. I think the original 3 Evil Deads are really interesting. Like, the first one is this weird, trippy, terrible trash movie. The second one and the third one are really funny comedy movies. I think the remake is kind of a really well-made, interesting thriller. Really economic, really like good use of the set and the setting and all that. Evil Dead Rise, I mean, it had a couple of spooky sequences. Don't get me started on movies. Don't get me started on movies, guys. You don't even know. I have so many takes. I think The Rocketeer is one of the best movies ever made. You want to talk about The Rocketeer? I'll talk about The Rocketeer. Timothy Dalton? You kidding me? But yeah. I'll get you started on movies. Another Blu-ray video incoming. Drop a spicy take on films, please. Okay, so do you want a fun... well, this is maybe not a fun take about film. I think film is basically the bad timeline for the video game industry, where it's either you make a $800 million to recoup your budget and marketing costs, or it's nothing. And it's just like, unless you're Tarantino or Scorsese or Christopher Nolan, you can't get funding for your movies. And like, the monetization options for film are so terrible. It's just like this completely degenerated trash fire industry. Video games, we have the indie scene. And the indie scene, I think, has way more vibrancy and sort of ability to survive than anything the movie scene ever had. So I think video games ultimately are fine. I think the state of the gaming industry is like, yeah, it's bad, but all of the bad stuff is really located mainly in the big AAA stuff. And the AA stuff, I think we can be resurrected. I think we have I think that's possible. But movies, man, that industry is run top to bottom by these, money men who just, we need to crank out more Marvel shows. So I don't think there's a lot of redeeming quality there. Or like a lot of hope for salvation anytime soon. And I really feel for people who are like really deeply immersed in cinema. Because like they get a lot of good movies. It's not like there's no good movies. There's a lot of it. But we complain about the video game scene, but man, movies, oof. Let's talk about you for a second. You're literally Ryan Gosling. Well, see, that's not possible because I am literally Ryan Gosling. I am like, the guy from Drive? I am him. That's literally me. You can't be Ryan Gosling. I'm that. I'm Ryan Gosling. You can be Taxi Driver. What do I think of Drive? I love Drive. That's amazing. I love Nicholas Winding Refn. The Neon Demon. You kidding me? Elle Fanning, and Keanu Reeves is barely in that movie. I was gonna name some more actors, but they all flew out of my head. I love that movie. I love Refn. I love Drive. Agreed on the Alien one. I missed the Alien one chat. Horror and female characters are a good combo. Because horror is the perfect genre to comment on the female condition. Okay. Yeah, I mean, horror is always a good format for really just telling really deep stories where you can take for granted that the audience is going to immerse themselves in the narrative and the themes and stuff like that. Double A. Yeah. Double A. How about things like The Norseman? I haven't seen The Norseman. I'm not a big Robert Eggers guy. I watched The Lighthouse and I was like, man, I think this movie is shit. And like, no, it's like a really well-made movie. But Robert Eggers, he just doesn't do it for me. I don't know. I don't hate him. I get the love, but it's just his movies aren't for me. Serious question. Do you think most people miss the point of the uncanny acting in the Silent Hill series that reinforces the horror? A lot of people just think I talk to just think it's awkward. It's two things. Like on one hand, yeah, it absolutely does sort of amp up that uncanny valley effect of like, these people seem so disconnected from reality because like they're talking to each other like this, and you're just like, it kind of feels like they're drifting in and out of the immediacy of the moment they were living in. And it's like, it feels like a weird dream, but at the same time it just also does look like really shitty acting half the time. and if that's how you respond to that kind of performance, you're not wrong. Like, you respond to it how you respond to it. And for some people, it clicks, and for others, it just kind of comes across as weird and wooden. So I don't think it's do they miss the point? You either get it or you don't. I don't think that the more you need to think about the acting and like the seriousness and like if you have to sit down and be like, oh, well, this looks like shitty acting to me, but it's possibly this other thing, like, then the acting didn't work. If it's intuitive, then it's working, and for some people it doesn't work. He was agreeing that Alien 1 was the best horror film ever. Ooh, I can't agree with that. No. I can't agree with that. People pretending they're me. I'm Gosling. You are not Ryan Gosling. I am Ryan Gosling. Acer gets all electric when he buys AA batteries. I do. Buzz, baby. Speaking of power of Acer's aesthetics, what's your best Drive movie, Acer? What's my best Drive movie? You mean Drive? Could you expand a bit on that question? I don't know what you mean. I feel like a lot of recent movie darlings are liked because of the competence of the filmmaking, not the actual quality of the film holistically. Yes, Oh my god, I agree with this so much. This is a really good way of putting it too, where like
Never had the chance
um
to tell you.
a lot like just it looks really nice and the performances are good, but I get nothing out of this. Like the killing of a sacred deer. I watch this movie and I'm like, this means nothing. I watch Midsummer and I'm like, this is nothing to me. This is just like long, drawn out, boring shots that don't impart any meaning to me. I watch, you wanted spicy movie takes. Jordan Peele's movies. I hate them. I watch them and I'm like, wow, yeah, you know how to shoot a camera. You know how to organize people. You know how to get a performance out. But I'm just not connecting to anything I'm watching here. I don't feel anything when I'm watching this. You know what? I actually really liked, if you want to talk about filmmaking that makes you feel stuff, The Young Pope. I also watched The New Pope. I didn't like The New Pope, but The Young Pope, that's a good show.
Are you sure it's not you who's afraid to be alone?
Can't wait to see the normies comparing the dialogue from Silent Hill 2 original and remake. VA was only being introduced seriously in early games. The dialogue is still because it's actors recording individual lines in separate rooms, not reading the script. I mean, for Silent Hill, they had the actors on, like the voice actors are doing mocap, and they're reading the lines to each other there. So, I think Metal Gear Solid had the actors in... Did it? Maybe the Twin Snakes had the actors in the same room. I don't remember. But for Silent Hill, I'm at least from 2 onwards. Maybe not for the first one, but from 2, I'm pretty sure they had the actors together. At least I have seen the actors wearing the mocap suits together. They probably didn't record the audio while they were doing the mocap, but like if you can organize the actors to do mocap like that, they're reading the lines to each other and they're acting the sequences out. I always wondered if the Silent Hill 2 directing was intentionally bad since the reading of Mary's letter is so good. So surely the other acting wasn't bad, but intentionally still. I mean, the reading of Mary's letter is also just, she is a really, her name escapes me, the actress, Douglas something? Her name isn't Mary Douglas. She's a good actress, and if you just, a good actress can you just give her a good script and she can just do a good reading off of that. And apparently that was the first take, which is really cool. Unfathomably based movie takes. I expect nothing less from literally me. Did you watch Midsummer after I told you about it? Nobody questions if David Lynch movies' weird acting is bad. Exactly. People take for granted that the acting in his movies can be weird. Finally, somebody knows the new Pope. Let's go. Anyone remember the name of the movie about Alzheimer's with the actor that plays Odin in Marvel? Anthony Hopkins? No, I didn't know Anthony Hopkins did an Alzheimer's movie. Outside of films and Silent Hill games, have you played any games released in the last couple of years you really enjoyed? Like I said, I love the new output of Resident Evil games. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in them. Lunacid, I played the Lunacid beta. I really like that. I love what Lilith is doing with the Bloodborne demakes. First the Bloodborne demake, and now we're getting Bloodborne card. Really cool. And we might be getting a conversation with Lilith. There's a couple of conversations behind the scenes happening. FromSoft keeps making games. FromSoft games stay good. There's some stuff. There's stuff here that I like. It's also 2023. Surprisingly, has been like a really good year, and not just like compared to the garbage slop we usually get. 2023 has been fine. It's like no, this is actually like a good year. There's a lot of terrible things that have happened and a lot of crap games, but like just a surprising collection of really quality games have been released, and I'm all for it. It's The Father. Is that the movie about Anthony Hopkins? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't get too much into it here. I recently lost a relative who had been struggling with Alzheimer's Alzheimer's or dementia for the last couple of years of his life, and it's like it just destroys that person. It's such a horrible disease. Fires of Rubicon. Fires of Rubicon was good. Like I said, FromSoft delivers. Everybody's crying about Benjamin Button. I haven't seen Benjamin Button, guys. Opinion on Remedy's games. I think they haven't made truly good games since Max Payne 2. Ooh, I haven't played Remedy's games. I was gonna play Control, but it just felt like a slightly sort of exaggerated version of the sort of Last of Us kind of game. And then I don't have a PlayStation 5 yet, so I can't try Alan Wake 2. I didn't even play the first Alan Wake. That's like, some people love it, some people don't love it. I am going to be getting the PlayStation 5 probably, though, really soon, because when I record the Elden Ring commentary, I want that crisp, high-end, high frame rate footage, and it's going to be better to record that on PS5 than on my PS4. Oh, the movie's about that, but from the perspective of the person with the disease. Ooh, yeah, that's probably really good. And he's such a good actor. Anthony Hopkins is so good. Control was pretty good. Leaned a bit too hard into the SCP style lore and wacky scientist video logs, but pretty good. Alright. Relax. Calm down. I believe you. I'm sorry, Control leaned too hard into SCP. I freaking wish. Oh, wait a minute. We have some contention in chat. Yeah, I enjoyed Anno 1800 and Victoria 3 a lot too. You know what we haven't had in a really long time? We haven't had a game about being a guy in Rome, and you're just like getting rid of those damned what are they called? Assassinates, or those cursed Gauls that they needed to go. You know, just being a guy in Rome and you get to just conquer territory, man. We haven't had one of those in a while. Anything to stay on the topic of SCP, Azer? You're kind of into the SCPs, aren't you? I don't know much about SCPs. Most of the stuff I know about SCPs comes from you, Whiskey, so, you know. My biggest gripe with Control, which I love, was that it didn't utilize the SCP-style lore more, and everything turned out to be a squid or a fungus. That's often the case in horror. You're like, oh my god, it's gonna be... that's actually kind of like, you know, if you're reading a Lovecraft story, usually it's just a squid. If you're reading a Hudson story, usually it's just a fungus. What do I think of Parasite Eve? I've actually never played Parasite Eve. Also, out of the new Silent Hill games announced, which do I have the least faith in? Ooh. It was probably Ascension, because it just looked like a marketing device dressed up like a video game. But of the ones that haven't come out, I mean, probably Silent Hill 2 Remake, because I feel like I know exactly what it's gonna be. It's just gonna be, you know, I'm sorry that I just keep saying this. I'm just on loop here. I think it's just gonna be The Last of Us, but it's Silent Hill 2, and that's just like, I've seen nothing that excites me about this studio having a take on this game or this story. So, whereas everything else is like, this could be anything. This could go anywhere. No, I'm not. I'm in those shows. Son of Rome 2. Rome is way underutilized in video games. Maybe it needs too much research compared to other settings. Maybe. Thanks for the stream. I'm out. Oh, now you're out. When you're done working, you clock out. But when I'm done streaming, when I've said everything I can say about Silent Hill, I'm expected to keep going to entertain you at work. Nah, it's fine. Go to sleep, man. Alan Wake 1 runs terribly on PC. Ooh, that's terrible. Yeah, the three genders of horror: squid, fungus, and all in the head. I think you'd enjoy Parasite Eve. It's very good. Probably my favorite Square games. I probably would. That was a really good era for video games where everything more or less was just like, we have these crazy new franchises to experiment with this crazy new presentation format of 3D. So yeah, I probably would like it. I want a horror game set in the Imperial Rome era. They're invading the north into France and find eldritch abominations of other gods, unlike their Roman gods. Okay. You know, if you want to do a good Silent Hill game, I've sat on this one for some time. I'm usually not a big fan of like, oh my god, it's an Origins game, but if you do like a colonial settlement game set in Silent Hill, because the settlers, so Silent Hill, the way it works is that there's a mysterious power assigned to the land, kind of like Pet Sematary, where there's just like this magical land that has the power to resurrect things. And there were indigenous people who lived on the land who had like a holistic relationship with this power. But then the settlers came and they pushed the indigenous people out and they contaminated the power. Probably by overusing it, resurrecting things too often. And there were like witch burnings and you're like, I wonder what happened here. And the power and like the other world, the force of the other world took on the Christian imagery of the new settlers. And then everybody died in like this onset of massive disease, and then it became like a penal colony, Silent Hill, and then it was like reopened as a town way later. There's probably an interesting story to be told there. Maybe it's best to just stay as like kind of vague, intriguing lore. But you know, if you want to do a good Silent Hill story, there's one for you. What's my most memorable moment in Silent Hill? Mine was the first time visiting the sewers in Silent Hill 1. So my most memorable moment in Silent Hill is Silent Hill 4 has what I consider to be the greatest moment in horror gaming, and that's when you go into the other apartment. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And you see what's on the other side. It's just like this complete violation of physical space. It's amazing. Did an Eternal Horror do some Rome stuff? Going back some time? Maybe? I didn't play Eternal Horror. What do I think about the Kane Pixels stuff? Backrooms and the Oldest View more recently. Is Kane Pixels, is that like an indie game developer? I'm not familiar with them. But Backrooms, I know about the Backrooms. Didn't the Backrooms start as like just a 4chan thing or something that sort of spread out? I think that liminal spaces, like the horror of liminal spaces, I'm getting notifications. The horrors of liminal spaces, I think, work best when there's not a monster. And it's just like this. I don't know how many of you have encountered this, but I often am finding myself visiting people in like apartment buildings, and there's just like these weird number of doors you have to go through. And it's really interesting because the more doors you have to go through into like enclosed spaces with other doors that lead to enclosed spaces with other doors, it's like oftentimes when you go into like the storage facility and the basement level of big apartment blocks, it's actually like really creepy and atmospheric, and you're just like surrounded by walls and you kind of become disoriented. It's really interesting stuff. And I think that when you drop monsters into the setting, the horror of liminal spaces kind of gets overshadowed by, oh, there's a threat here, and it stops being a thing of navigating a really uncomfortable space, and the space just sort of becomes a backdrop for running away from something, and it loses its power. But yeah. Yeah. The narrative could be a bit disjointed, but I was hooked. The muskets and tomahawks were a plus. I missed that. Ugh. Sorry. Kane Pixels is a YouTuber that does camcorder style horror. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Wholeheartedly agree on the no creatures part. The internet ruined the backrooms. I don't know if they ruined it, but they just sort of like drove it into this space it wasn't really good at. You owe me the deck building mech game, Acer. Don't start to think your urban exploration game. I'm sorry. I know. I promised the deck building mech game. The deck building mech game. Okay, so like Pedro, you and I, we're going to become filthy rich because that is a really good idea. You're like just drawing cards and you're like, well, how am I gonna build this thing? And you have like roguelike elements and it's gonna be amazing. And like maybe it takes place in the back rooms, and you know you can have the audience pay money to vote for what happens next. And we cooked it. I'm sorry, we ruined it. Did I play Shadow Hearts? I don't think so. Maybe Shadow Hearts. Wait, maybe I did play this Shadow Hearts. Oh, no, I don't think I played this. I wasn't really big into sort of RPG games back during the PlayStation 2 era, so I am shockingly poorly traversed in that. I like Final Fantasy X, nope. Kingdom Hearts, nope. Chrono Cross, nope. Like completely flew over my head. Dark Cloud, nope. I think Kane kind of realized that as the series progressed, it became more about the implications of the space more. Yeah. A Silent Hill set in the aftermath of the Civil War, and you're a Confederate soldier in the prison of Silent Hill, the Historical Society. Oh yeah, maybe. But like Silent Hill, I think it's set in Maine. Isn't that a? You know, you can always sort of toy around with a story, but isn't Maine a bit too north to be housing Confederate soldiers? Isn't that like really, really north? I've never been to America, so if I'm wrong, it's okay. Or maybe it's a southern state. I don't know. Maine. I'm not finding it on this map. Where's Maine? Oh, no, that's Des Moines, Iowa. Like, I thought this was Maine for a moment, but no, it's Des Moines. Where's Maine? Damn it! North Carolina, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Mississippi. They have a West Virginia now? Amazing. Oh, yeah, it's like way north. It's way north. There's no, like, you wouldn't have Confederate soldiers there. I don't know. Maybe you would. I don't know. They'd attack you for saying they're southern. It is north, yeah. Gameplay is garbage, but the story's great. Yeah, okay, here's actually like this stream is sort of petering out, and I feel like we've been going for almost 2 hours. This has been a good stream. Fun time, everybody. This sequence is incredible. If this is indeed the sequence, or maybe it's not. But like Silent Hill 2 is very much about men. It's like it's a very masculine game about like you have the relationship the characters have with men, like Eddie being bullied. You have Angela having been abused by her father and her brother. You have James as like he has the role of a man as like a protector and he fails. And you have like Pyramid Head as a manifestation of that. And it's just a very masculine, the horror is very masculine in nature. Silent Hill 3 is very feminine in its horror. And this is one of those. It's like, here you just have a stalker character. I love Heather isn't enough for what I feel. Oh, what tender emotion this image brings. And it's just like, you never see this character. There's just this manifestation of a stalker. And, you know, this is just like, I think this is also why Silent Hill 3 didn't have the explosive popularity at launch. I think like Silent Hill 3 is a game that people have sort of more and more discovered in recent years. I think that's kind of because the gaming press at the time was more like, it was more men who maybe didn't pick up that ideas of body image being implicit in the enemy design, the theme of abortion, like this idea of having a stalker, like these more feminine-centered horrors. Kind of, I think they flew over the heads of a lot of the reviewers, and they looked at it just as a retread of Silent Hill 1, when actually it's a retread of Silent Hill 2, but from a feminine perspective rather than a masculine one. So yeah, I'm wondering if Heather is my favorite woman in any video game. Might be. Really like this character, at least. Yeah, but yeah. So, and also like, Claudia. I talked about Claudia earlier, but like her relationship with Heather is also really interesting, and how their relationship with their fathers are very opposite each other. Interesting stuff. Acer's wife, who discovered she's like 13, guys, or like 16. Or calm down, guys, calm down. Samus Aran. Ooh. I don't think I've. Yeah, I must have played some Metroids. I'm not a big Metroid guy though. 17. Oh, she's 17. I think 17 is a bit too young to be a waifu. Like, I'm sorry to put it out there. I think 17, a bit too young. But on that note, I'm just looking at the gameplay now. On that note, guys, that's been the absolute state of Silent Hill. We kind of just had some fun at the end here, just conversation, chat. I like doing those too. It's fun talking to you guys. If you want to continue the conversation, the Discord link is in the description. You can join there, the Friends of Acer Discord. And other than that, just, like, subscribe. I don't know. I don't know how to end this. If you want to continue the talk, like I said, Discord link in the description. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye. Yeah, I gotta close the stream out before before people start debating ages of waifus and such. That's where we draw the line. Ended with Skeletor. I want to get He-Man. That's what Skeletor's like. Bye-bye.